Hello everyone. Today we will start number lecture 6 on the subject comparative typology of English, Kazakh and Russian languages, and the theme of our lecture genealogical, typological and morphological Areal classification of languages. The plan of our lecture: genealogical classification of languages, typological or morphological classification of languages, and the last one, Areal classification of languages. Genealogical and classification of languages is a way of organizing languages based on the shared historical and ancestral roots. In a sense, in groups, a language that descend from a common ancestral languages, this classification is the key concept in historical linguistics and helps scholars stress in the evaluation of languages over time. The classification typically starts with large families or superfamilies that branch out into similar groups and eventually individual languages. Here is an overview of how the genealogical classification works. Language family. The broadest level in language family consists of languages that all trace their roots back to a common ancestor. For example, the Indo-European family include languages like English, French, Hindi, Russian, and many others. These languages all originated from Proto-Indo-European. Language subfamily. With each family there are subfamilies which are smaller group of related languages. For example, within the Indo-European family there are subfamilies like in Romance, Germanic and Slavic languages. Language branch. These feature subdivision with a subfamily. For instance, with the Germanic subfamily we find branches like North Germanic, which includes a language like Swedish, Danish and Norwegian, and West Germanic, which includes language like English or German and Dutch. Individual languages. At the smallest level we have the individual languages. For example, English, Spanish and Russian are individual language within their respective subfamilies. Typological or morphological classification of languages. Focus on the structure of languages and how they form words and sentences. Unlike genealogical classification, which is based on common ancestry, typological classification categorizes language based on shared structural features, regardless of their historical or genetic relationships. Here, an overview of main concepts involve typological or morphological classification. The classification is based on how language structure world and how they handle thinking like affix, prefix, suffix, roots and stems. There are four main types of morphological structure. The first one, isolating language characteristics. These languages tend to have a low or use of affix. World type typically consists of single morpheme, the smallest unit of meaning. For example, Chinese, Vietnamese and many Creole languages. For example, in Chinese, each word usually corresponds to a single meaning without additional inflections. The word mar means mother and mar means horse, with tone difference providing distinction in meaning rather than change in the word itself. Genetic typology compares system of genetic kindred languages in diachrony and in synchrony. These types of typology in general linguistics is called historical comparative methods in linguistics. Areal typology compares language irrespective of their relationship in order to determine common elements formed as a result of mutual influence of language existing in definite area. The subject of such investigation is borrowed element in languages, language contact, language union and bilingualism. Structural typology considers system of different language without any genetic and areal limitation. And comparative typology units two directions in language study: contrastive comparative and typological. Agglutinative languages characteristics. These language use affix to express grammatical relationship. The affix are typically added to word one by one. For example, in Turkish, the word evlerimizden, from our house, can be broken down as ev, house, ler, plural. Fusional inflectional languages characteristics. These language fuse multiple grammatical meaning into a single affix. A single affix can carry more than one piece of information, tense, number, person. For example, in Spanish, the verb hablamos combines habl, road, are, tense, most, person, and a number. Polysyntactic languages characteristics. These languages tend to create complex words by combining many morphemes into one single word. This allows the language to express what would be a full sentence in other language. For example, in institute, this word means I'm not to hear it, whereas the entire meaning is packed into one long word. Areal classification of languages. Areal classification of languages is a linguistic approach that groups a language based on geographic, region, races, and historical or structural relationships. Key concept of areal classification. Language contact. When languages are spoken in close proximity to each other, they can influence one another, leading to the sharing of linguistic features over time. Even language from different families may develop similar traits due to sustained contrast. Here is the linguistic area. And these shared features can be syntactic, phonological, morphological, or lexical, and they are often indicate of language coverage by when language became more alike due to contact. Convergence and divergence. Convergence when language from different families or groups became more similar over time due to contact, and the divergence when language evolved separately and it became more distinct over time, often due to geographic separation. In contrast, typological or morphological classification focus on the structural characteristics of language rather than their historical relationship. By examining how languages form word and sentence, this classification divided them into isolating, agglutinative, fusional, and polysyntactic types. This framework allows researchers to compare languages that may not be historically related but share similar grammatical features. It also provides valuable information about how linguistic structure influence communication, cognition, and cultural expression. Areal classification introduces another dimension to language study by considering the geographical influence linguistic development. This classification highlights how language contact, trade, migration, and cultural exchange shapes the linguistic landscape, often leading to shared phonological, lexical, and grammatical features among languages that may belong to different families. In conclusion, the classification of languages plays a fundamental role in understanding the development, structure, and the interaction of human languages across history. Genealogical classification provides insight into the historical connection between languages by grouping them into families, subfamilies, branches, and individual languages based on their shared ancestry. This approach enables linguists to reconstruct ancient language and trace the evaluation of linguistic traits over time. By integrating these three major classification methods, genealogical, typological, and areal, linguists gain a comprehensive understanding of the complexity and the diversity of human languages. Each classification system offers unique insight, and others they provide a fluid picture of how languages evolve, interact, and adapt. whether tracing linguists and history, analyzing structural similarities, exploring regional influence. This classification contribute to our broader understanding of language as a dynamic and evolving system of human communication. Thank you for your attention. See you soon.